Hello everyone, I'm the Saxy Gamer. Today we're here for something that is very exciting because the second expansion for Civilization 6 was just announced. So Civilization 6 Gathering Storm will be releasing on February 14th, 2019, and there are a lot of really cool new additions to this expansion, and there's also some changes that I think are definitely going to change up how we play Civ 6 and just how the meta of the game is going to change. So without further ado, I would just like to get into things and talk about generally some of the things that are going to be added and changed in the expansion. I might do some separate videos that go a little bit more in depth about each of these different things, but without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the first of the new additions. The first of the new additions to the Gathering Storm expansion is something that a lot of people have been theorizing about and desiring to have in Civ 6, and that is an electricity system. So electricity is something that's going to be introduced in the later eras of the game. They haven't really said what it's going to do. We just know that it's going to be, it's going to work to either improve or degrade late-game buildings. Maybe it's going to affect happiness as well. We don't really know anything about that. But there are multiple ways that you can generate electricity. You can burn coal, you can burn oil, you can make a dam, you can use solar power, wind power, and there are going to be drawbacks and good things about each of these forms of generation, because there is now a pollution system and a climate change thing that is in the game as well. So obviously, if you're going to be burning coal and burning oil, you're going to be causing a lot of pollution, which is going to affect some of the other new features that are being added in the expansion. And one thing to note is that whenever you use these non-renewable sources like coal and oil, they are actually going to consume strategic resources, and that's something I'll talk about towards the end of the video. But in summary there, the entire strategic resource whole system is going to be reworked, in that now, previously in Civ 6, how it works right now is either you have a resource or you don't. But in Gathering Storm, it's going to actually be a quantity-based system where you have so much of a resource, you can use it all up, and, maybe you need to balance using it for electricity versus using it for your military, and there are finite amounts of it that must be used to build units and finite amounts of it on the map. So that is something that is going to be very interesting, but let's go ahead and move on to the second of the new features, which are the natural disasters. Natural disasters were something that I theorized about whenever I did that video on the Vesuvius leaks, which evidently Vesuvius was just the code name for the Gathering Storm DLC. But in that video in the comment section, a lot of you expressed your concerns about the natural disasters being too RNG and just ruining your games because of something that you had no control over. And I'm very glad to say that, thankfully, the Civ 6 development team did a very good job of balancing this out and not making it just RNG cheese. So natural disasters in Gathering Storm are going to occur on a pseudo-random basis. And one thing that this means, if you don't know what pseudo-random is, but if a natural disaster hasn't occurred, then the chance that it will occur in the next turn is going to go up, and if it has occurred, then the chance that another one will occur in the next turn goes down. So it pretty much means that some are definitely going to happen, but they're not going to be just random spam based on RNG. It is definitely pseudo-random. And on top of that, there are also a number of other factors that influence whether or not natural disasters will happen. So they are based on pollution levels, and this is something that if I do videos that go in depth on each of the new mechanics in Gathering Storm, this is definitely one that I'll talk about, because there is a whole new system based on world pollution and CO2 levels and like the level of the ocean and the melting of the ice caps. So that affects the amount of natural disasters that can happen. It's based on location. So obviously, if you don't want to experience a flood in a city, don't settle in a floodplain. So there are things like floodplains, there are low coastlines that are at risk of getting, flooded by the ocean. You obviously wouldn't want to settle near a volcano. You wouldn't want to settle near, I don't know, like a continent split because of the threat of earthquakes. So there are like location-based keys that can let you know whether or not you are at risk for a natural disaster, and there are locations that are safe. And I think that this is a really, really cool thing, just because I'm kind of getting tired of the current meta in Civ 6 of just, well, settle on freshwater, the coast sucks, and then you'll just win the game if you just settle inland on freshwater and spam down districts. So I think this will be a very nice way to change it up and just make settling in other locations a little bit more viable. As far as the disasters that we know are going to be in the game so far, we know that there are blizzards, sandstorms, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, and droughts. So all of those are pretty expected. One thing that I guess I didn't list here, but I really should have, is that there also are volcanoes that can explode. So I don't know if that was definitely a natural disaster, but it's very heavily based on location, because obviously that can only happen near a volcano. So volcanoes are something else that are in the game. And the other very interesting thing that I really like that they did with natural disasters is that natural disasters they're not totally bad in Civ 6 because tile yields now are dynamic, and natural disasters can change the yields that you get from tiles. So in the little gameplay segment that they showed after the release trailer or not the teaser trailer for Gathering Storm, they showed that whenever a river floods, in the turns after it floods, the tiles that get flooded then get an additional +1 food on them. So natural disasters are not totally bad, and maybe you can even use them to your advantage once we learn about their mechanics a little bit better to make sure that we could get really good cities with really good yields. Sure, we're going to have that risk, but if we're able to manage the risk, then we can get really good yields in cities, and there are ways that are built into Gathering Storm to deal with these disasters as well, which we will talk about in a little bit. So there's a lot of information on natural disasters, and I really like the direction that they're going with them, so hopefully we can learn a little bit more, and hopefully they keep going in the right direction with them. Another one of the big things that they are adding to Civ 6 is quite a few additions to the diplomacy system. So for one, the World Congress returns. I know that that's something that a lot of people have been requesting because they really enjoyed their time with the World Congress in Civ 5, and the World Congress is going to return in similar fashion in Civ 6. So with the World Congress, it's based on a favor system. They haven't really expanded on that too much, but we know it's based on some sort of favor point system, and you can earn those favor points from obviously like doing good things, maybe making peace with people, maybe if you're friends with someone, if you're creating alliances, you'll earn favor, and if you're working with disaster relief, apparently Nobel Prizes are a thing, and all of those can help earn you favor. And also there is still the similar policy, like the policy system that was in Civ 5, so you can maybe ban luxury resources, you can enact non-proliferation, anything of that sort. So we don't have too much information on how the World Congress is going to function yet, but I can assume that it's going to be rather similar to Civ 5. The other really big thing for diplomacy is another thing that a lot of people have been requesting, and that is that a diplomatic victory type has been added to the game. This is going to function similarly to how, I can't remember if it was called Diplomatic Victory or not in Civ 5, but pretty much you vote in the World Congress for a world leader. And you can do that based on the favor system, as mentioned before, and you can gain favor points through things such as disaster relief, Nobel Prizes, reducing pollution. All of those things can help you gain favor towards becoming the world leader, and thus the diplomatic victory can be won. So I think that that is something that is very nice. It will add a nice change to the ways that you can play Civ 6 because, as I've mentioned, the meta in Civ 6 right now is pretty heavily set. Obviously, you're able to play it any way you want, but some ways are definitely better than others. So I think this is just going to be another thing that can change up how Civ 6 is played, and it adds another passive play style. Domination is pretty heavy in currently how Civ 6 is played, so maybe another way to kind of remove that domination meta and that aggression meta, I think is something that would be very cool. So I'm very glad that they're adding both the World Congress and the Diplomatic Victory type. Continuing with some more new additions, we also have some new engineering projects that are going to be added to the game, and these are the things that I think are put into the game to help deal with the whole natural disasters thing. So far we know that we can build canals, we can build dams, we can build tunnels, railroads, and flood barriers. So most of that seems like ways to deal with, possible flooding. Maybe you can use tunnels to go through mountain ranges, which I think is really cool. You can use railroads to get around faster, similar to how they have been in other Civ games. They're pretty much just like better roads, although they are a little bit more expensive. And there is a new canal district as well, which I'll show a picture of that right now. It looks really cool, so it makes me very happy that the devs over at Civ have realized the people's infatuation with the whole canal city thing, and they're just adding more things into the game to make that even more possible. So what it looks like here is that the canal district, you can now build canal cities over 2-tile land bridges as well. So you can have the city on one tile, the district on the other one, and then you can transport your ships across through the canal district and through the city to get to the other side of the landmass. So I think that this is all very cool. It's going to add some nice ways to deal with the natural disaster mechanic and probably not make it as obnoxious as it potentially could be. So engineering projects, definitely very cool. And the last thing I would like to talk about are some other miscellaneous additions and changes. So for one, we know that we're going to be getting 9 new leaders and 8 new civs. So that means that we are going to be getting a replacement leader maybe for one of the existing civs, or maybe we're going to get 2 new leaders for one of the new civs, but that is something that's exciting. I kind of hope that they add in a new leader for one of the civs that's already in the game. I'm not sure which one, but any change to that is very cool, because I do like the idea of having multiple leaders for a given civilization. We also do know that there are going to be 18 new units, 15 new improvements, 9 new buildings, 5 new districts, 9 new technologies, 10 new civics, 7 new natural wonders, and 7 new world wonders as well. And one of the ones that we at least know for the wonders is the Golden Gate Bridge, which they did release a little picture of here. So there's a lot to be learned from this image, and I'm not going to go too in-depth into it right now, but you can definitely see the Golden Gate Bridge and some of the other various new things. Maybe I'll make a video talking about all of the stuff that's in this image, because there is admittedly a ton of stuff in this image. But there's a lot of new little things, like all those units I hope are going to be very cool. Those improvements, all of that stuff, and they also are adding a new era into the game. I believe it's at the very end of the game, which is probably where those 9 new techs and 10 new civics come from. We do also know that the other victory types are being revamped. They didn't really say how. I know that they stepped back and they looked at how each of those victory types are played and how they should adjust that based on the new systems that are being added in Gathering Storm. Once again, I think that that's a very nice thing, just because after a while and after a lot of hours playing Civ, you kind of get into a rut of just playing the same victory types over and over and over again with the same strategies. So I think any change to that is going to be very good. We do know that there are some expansions upon the espionage system to work with these particular victory types, so once again, pretty cool. And as I mentioned before, the strategic resource system is being revamped in that now it's no longer do you have a strategic resource or do you not, but rather there is actually quantity applied to each strategic resource, so you only have a limited supply of a strategic resource, so you have to choose to use it for power or for units, and you can't just spam endless units based on how much resource you have. Once again, just a lot of things that I really like that are going to change up the general gameplay style of Civ 6. There is definitely a lot more stuff to talk about, and if you haven't watched the stream where they showed some gameplay, I would highly encourage you to, because it is a very cool stream and it shows a lot of the new stuff. I'm probably going to go a little bit more in-depth as we get more information on each of these new systems, so be looking out for that. But I don't want to keep you all any longer. This video is long enough as is. So thank you everyone for watching. I have been the Saxy Gamer. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you're looking for more Civilization 6 content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.